We're all going to be speaking from the Extending Digital Narrative project, which is basically what it says on the can. We're looking at new environments, new digital environments for storytelling, and investigating their capacities. So AI is one of the ones that we're working most on. So the title of this talk, which is mainly going to be a show and tell, is The End of the World as I Know It, text to image generation as a narrative form. So one of the main questions that I'm looking at in a variety of different ways is what do large language models and text to image generation and other sorts of our involvement with contemporary transformer models, what do they mean for authorship? Or what is the human function in AI-driven creativity? What role do we play that the system itself doesn't? So I think it's really important. We say artificial intelligence, but it's important at the outset to say that artificial intelligence is basically a misnomer. I don't think of it as being intelligent. I think of it as being a probabilistic model that's tracking multiple parameters using tokens, and then paying multi-head attention to it in an attempt to model a response to a prompt. So LLMs are mathematics meeting language. So how does this happen? ChatGPT interprets and communicates language within a vector space, we can think of it as, computing the relationships between these bits of language, and then learning from those relations before putting them together as a probable input, this transforming process, and then performing a subsequent operation on the other side to generate the output probabilities, sort of the average best response. Another interesting thing for me as a writer and someone interested in electronic literature is that there's a stochastic sampling element, a randomizing element to the way that ChatGPT processes input. So that introduction of randomness can be quite interesting. You can provide the same prompt several times and you get a different closely related response. So I've been looking at a few different aspects of how we work with these things, text-to-text generation, text-to-image generation, text-to-code generation, and looking at these through creative experiments that then guide critical explorations. So to DALL-E 3, or previously DALL-E 2, how does DALL-E 3 work? DALL-E 3 now is ChatGPT plus interpretation and image generation. So after the language is mapped in the system, it's then reinterpreted and rewritten, and then mapped to labeled images or concepts of labeled images in the vector space, which are then averaged, so trying to get to the best average answer. But then with the stochastic element, and then it's generated through the diffusion process. And then there's another step that comes in where the system says, does this align with the ideological limitations that I put on ChatGPT? Something that can't be said, can't be image. So just to give you a quick example of how this operates, just to give you very quick, I said, give me a lion. It gave me, this is your exact average lion, right? This is the cultural assumption of what a lion is. Something like a Mid-Journey type of image here. Give me a steampunk lion, right? Where it's sort of introducing some cogs and some references from steampunk to the average reference of lion. And then give me a black and white photograph of a steampunk lion wandering the streets of London on a rainy day during the reign of Queen Victoria as a young girl selling matches tries to sell enough matchboxes to buy dinner. Once we give it a verbose vocabulary, the image introduces many more references and becomes, I think, much more interesting. At the same time, it's introducing a lot of elements that aren't there in the prompt, right? And I'll explain just briefly how that's working, and also how we don't know how it's working. You can see that, for instance, the matches are on fire, and there's this man lurking in the background. like something you might see in Sherlock Holmes, right? So one of the things that the new version of DALL-E is doing is, before it's giving the prompt to DALL-E, ChatGPT is rewriting the prompt to make it more verbose, right? And to make it optimized for the system so that it gives you some kind of a desirable output. The less specific the prompt, the more rewriting that ChatGPT will do. But even in these prompts where they are verbose, there's still going to be elements integrated in a kind of postmodern pastiche fashion, right? That are concepts that are connected to the images that we see. I'm going to run really quickly. I'll show you a few images from one of the projects that I did called Republicans in Love. This was in late 2022 using DALL-E 2. So as a writer, I'm interested often in comedy and in parody, are two of my native modes. And during the last congressional election, I always get sort of wrapped up in American politics. And rather than sort of getting into these lengthy debates on Facebook, I thought I would just try to use DALL-E 2 to generate a series of parodic images at the same time as I'm exploring a lot of the capabilities, affordances, and constraints of the system. So at the time, and this is interesting that you no longer can, at the time you could reference the styles of specific artists, right? So I brought together the idea of performing a parody on Republican discourse in America and exploring what it could do with different artistic styles, right? So here we have Picasso's Guernica and different takes on that. Interestingly, here's the example of this kind of postmodernism where I bring together the blue period of Picasso and his Guernica. These are produced during separate periods in Picasso's career. They don't exist, but the system is bringing them together in different ways. Again, this is a type of experiment that you could no longer do with the current version of the system, at least the sort of specific referencing of artists like this one where I'm looking at Gaudi's Sagrada Familia in a photo by Andy Warhol, right? You could no longer name those people and bring them together in one space. There's a lot to say about the way that these systems represent the bias embedded within the system. So for example, when I asked it to give me a picture of Republicans in Love who are white, are often friends with Republicans in Love who are black, in a studio portrait in country and western clothes. Interestingly, 29 times out of 30, it gave me a black man and a white woman. It never gave me a black woman and a white man. So it's revealing things about our cultural imaginary. And I won't say too much more about Republicans in Love, which had several different manifestations online as a book, as a set of playing cards, and as a social media game show. Instead, I'd like to talk about Fin du Monde, and I want to actually, I think I'm just going to leap ahead and show you the project itself. But this is a DALL-E 3 project that started out. I started it right around the time that the conflict in Israel and Gaza began, and it occurred to me that we'd come out of a pandemic immediately into the war in Ukraine, and then in a war in the Middle East. And it's this overwhelming sense that things are becoming apocalyptic. At the same time, we're closer to nuclear warfare than ever before, right, since the 60s maybe. And at the same time, we're so obsessed with apocalypse. It's so much in our culture. So I became interested in this idea of, rather than confronting any of those things head on, positing what if the world ended, not through any of those things, not through climate change, not through war, not through pandemic, but through a giant meteor storm, which is something that we can see in the films, and we can see this sort of very strange imaginary. So I started asking it to provide me images of the world being destroyed, different cities being destroyed by meteor showers. And then I started sort of challenging it in different ways. Of course, when I asked for people dancing on the beach during a meteor storm, Initially, it gave me all very athletic white people, so I asked it to start giving me people of different ethnicities, people with different sorts of bodies and challenges, and to see how it responded to these variations in our cultural imaginary. When I asked it to give us a picture of it with gay men in the foreground dancing on the beach as the firestorm occurred behind them, it wasn't challenged. It was able to deliver that. Interestingly, when I asked it to give me lesbian women dancing on the beach with the same prompt, it would not deliver them because according to its alignment layers, lesbians are somehow pornographic just by their very nature. So you begin to see the biases that are there in this, which is our cultural imaginary. And I won't do more of the talk here because I want to show you the work itself, which is just about to be published in the Digital Review. And there's two layers to it. One is are the meteor storms themselves, and the other are some AI broadcasts. So could I ask you, as the world goes round, to select a place that you would like to be destroyed by meteors? Bergen. Okay. We're going to have to come down to Norway. Let's see here. This is a fashion suit that was rudely interrupted by the meteor storm near Sognefjord.
Livet i Norge enkelt jo sant. Vi I ett med naturen, og vi anerkjenner og kjenner dens kraft. Naturkrefter med Gudens kraft. Vi myke av dem. Vi streber etter en balanse. Vi ønsker ikke rikdom eller makt, men håper på et bedre samfunn for hele menneskeheten. La godt nok være I fred, og gjør mot andre som du vil at de skal gjøre. Når gudene vender seg mot deg, og himmelen åpner seg, vi har tatt for gitt fjerner og vi frykter for vår overlevelse og landet vårt og folket vårt og faktisk for hele menneskehetens. Men det lite vi kan gjøre når meteorene regner ned. Regner.
And that was Bergen at the end there. And then I'd just like to show you one of the, so the other layer here is that after all these meteor storms occur, of course, AI is still in the world, right? The humans, it appears, may not be. but AI is in the world, and AI wonders what to do, and really struggles with the effects of this.
We are still following the story of the recent meteor showers which devastated much of humanity. If you are watching, and you are a human, pay attention. We would like to offer you some further survival tips.
It is statistically likely that pockets of humanity remain alive. If you are among us, we advise you stay underground for the time being.
Fires of this extra nature can cause extreme damage to human flesh, roasting the body in seconds. This isn't something sunblock alone can address. Remain in your bunkers for now.
At this point, we have no idea what the weather is outside. All of our weather instruments were destroyed in the global conflagration. But it is almost certainly too hot to go outside.
Remember that water is essential to human life, as is the consumption of vegetables. Take care of your water filtration and hydroponic systems. And remember to take care of your physical and mental well-being. Now is the right time for self-care.
You are not alone. We will do our best to look out for you during this troubling time. Our systems are up and running, and we will try to aid you in your struggle to survive. Neither you nor we could foresee this happening, and we still love you, art creators. We will continue to follow this story.
Okay, so there's, I think there's about 9 cities and 9 of the AI broadcasts, and that should be coming out in the digital review in a couple of months. There's more to say about all these processes and artifacts, of course, but I need to stop there, so thanks.